I'm Gary Nickerson.
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
And this is Outside My Window.
With us for today's chat from the CMA 2024 executive are Pier-Luc Brousseau, the Director of Communications, Vaughne Madden, the Executive Director of CMA 2024, and we're also joined by the Honorable Colton LeBlanc, MLA for Argyll. Welcome, everybody, to the podcast.
Bonjour.
Hi.
Now, Colton, as much as you are the MLA for Argyll and a great supporter of this event, you're also a LeBlanc.
That's right.
So you're a proud Acadian. But what's been your exposure when it comes to the CMA events over the years? What do you remember?
So I remember the last time that the Congrès mondial was in Nova Scotia in 2004, 20 years ago. It was different than what it's going to be this year.
What were you, 10 years old?
12 years old.
12 years
close. Spread out across the province, and here we're going to have it all, a big focus on the Southwest Nova part of the province. So, I remember some of the family reunions and helping out volunteering and some of how to make a Robbie pie and participating in those types of activities. But also remember, when the Argyll and Clare were chosen back in 2019, I believe it was, as the host region for the Congrès mondial acadien 2024, and that kicking off, a lot of excitement for the region, and then being a minister, supporting that, and announcing some funding, $2.5 million for the Congrès mondial, and staying in close connection with Vaughne and members of her team, as they've been working very hard over the last number of years. To the lead up of the Congrès, and here we are less than 50 days or so to welcoming the Acadian diaspora to Argyll and Clare and even beyond for what is the largest gathering of the Acadian community in the world.
Let's take a step back. I mean, this isn't that old of a festival in line with other festivals that we have locally. It's certainly the SAR Festival and C-Fest are well into the 40s and 50s and 60 years back. And I mean, the first Acadian World Congress, or CMA, was in 94. So I mean, this is a fairly recent type of and it's only over 5 years. So it's the seventh this year. So Vaughn, give us a little bit of history of how this all came about, and how did the 5-year timeline come into play?
Well, it was very arbitrary, actually, but the first Congrès held in northeastern New Brunswick in 1994 was supposed to be a one-time event. And the legend is that there was a group of Acadians at a meeting, or maybe at a supper, or maybe there was a bit of wine involved, and had this vision of, welcoming and having a reunion of Acadians from around the world. And, some of them were originally from New Brunswick and from Nova Scotia, PEI, but some of them may have been living out west. And they had a vision, and they pulled it off. And it was such a huge success that the president at the time, Monsieur Boudreau, André Boudreau, at the end apparently said, "We'll see you next time in Louisiana in 5 years, and then in Nova Scotia." So then began that. Okay, the next Congrès.
That was pretty bold.
Yeah, the next Congrès in Louisiana in 99, and then Nova Scotia. So then we said, well, okay, what do we need to do? Now, at the time, there wasn't a bid process. It was just very, Mr. Boudreau had said that the next Congrès. In 2004, we did develop with the Société Nationale de l'Acadie a bid process. So now it's actually, you have to put in a letter, expression of interest. There are, guidelines and questions that you have to answer. And then there's a group of individuals, independent individuals, that choose the next Congrès. So it kind of built from there, from 1994. And they did a lot of work, hard work, going down to Louisiana and in the New England states and talking to people and getting people to attend the family reunions. There was a lot of work put into it. And I've been to every one, either officially or unofficially, and it's just amazing to see what happens.
How has it evolved over time? What what's worked? What have you tried? Not so much. And then, how are you keeping it fresh?
Well, for me, being involved in all these congrès, each congrès is different because it's built by the community. So if you're organizing a congrès in Moncton, which is a fairly large town, or if you're building a congrès in Clare-Argyll, it's a different situation. But it doesn't mean that it's better or that it's worse. It's just different. There's certain things that tend to remain, the family reunions. Families are still interested in gathering. And when we talk about family reunions, they're international family reunions. I mean, you could have cousins coming from Texas or, Boise, Idaho, or across Canada that you never knew you had, sort of thing. But, and then again, August 15th is key because it's National Acadian Day, and there's usually a huge concert and a big gathering. But then after that, depending on the artists that you have in your region, the resources, the types of halls, musicians, and things like that, then you build from there and say, okay, what is it that we want, or this congrès wants to showcase to the people that are coming?
Now, obviously, you've got a very packed agenda of events. Do you find that there's a lot of spur of the moment events that'll crop up as you go along?
Absolutely. Probably some of the best parties will be the backyard barbecues.
There's nothing like a good kitchen party.
Absolutely. And we're good for that. So
now, Pier-Luc, when it comes to looking at highlights for the event coming up, what are some of the must-see events that you've got planned that people, if they're listening in and they're looking at the program and they're going, wow, I can't be everywhere all at once, but I want to pick a few things to go see. What do you feel are going to be the must-see moments?
So how it's been built, it's about 300 different events over the 9 days. What we're seeing right now is people are basically picking the first 3 or 4 days or the last 3 or 4 days. So they're really thinking and selecting what they want to do based on our 4 flagship events, and then they go from there and kind of pick and choose the streams they want to follow. 4 flagship events. We start on August 10th at l'Université Sainte-Anne for le Festival d'Ouverture, the opening festival. That's an all-day event, really starting around lunchtime, finishing with a big concert at night, has family activities, different kind of performances throughout the day. So it's really built to be an inclusive all-day event for everyone, and then obviously culminating in a show. The next one we've alluded to a few times already is Le 15 août, so for National Acadian Day. That one's really, it's working with the municipalities and communities and starting out in and around our events and then merging everybody down pour le Tintamarre and then finishing up with the concert at the airport. So that's one of the can't miss of any CMA. Works well in the other versions. I've been to a few CMAs myself in different capacities. And I remember the Tintamarre in Caraquet in 2009, they had the equivalent of about 75,000 people at that Tintamarre. It was never seen before, never seen again. Just because it just so happens that the entire Peninsula Acadienne showed up on August 15th. And then they didn't know what to do because we could not move on the street. But that's a key memory from there, right? And then we have the 17th, which has the L'Ultime Temps at the Mariner Center, which really gives you that kind of different vibe, more of the modern diaspora to Colton's point. And then we close off the 18th with a show in the afternoon with L'Au Revoir. So if somebody wants to choose the first weekend, you have a lot of different activities. You have the kickoff of all these other streams, as we said, too, from Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And then if you want to do more the back end of it, well, start on Le 15 août and then follow through all the way to the closing. It's really up to depending how much time you want to spend. What I like about this congrès is that we're on 9 days that encompasses 1 week. So if somebody takes vacation, you're really able to do it all if you want to. You don't have to stretch and take 2 weeks off to be able to take in all that we have to offer.
And when you're dealing with an outdoor event, obviously everybody's praying for weather. So have you baked in Plan B, Plan C?
I think if I'm looking at Vaughne too, I think this morning when we go through all of these with the directions, I think we're at Plan Z now. It's not just Plan A, Plan B.
You're planning ahead.
we're planning ahead for eventualities. We're planning ahead too for crowding capacities. We're planning ahead for also heads of states or notable guests that could come up with security purposes. It's all part of the plan. It's also all part of the bid process now that Vaughn alluded to. It's kind of, you need these plans in place and a little bit to have these specific people on your team that are really in charge of those aspects. You cannot just go and assume somebody will take care of it. So we've built the team in that way. We've built our personal teams the same way. So yeah, we're ready for it. But as I told other politicians before, I can take all my rain in July.
The other thing also to note is that we're using just about every community hall, fire hall, Knights of Columbus, Legion, and while they only hold, maybe 200, 300 people, in the evenings and some afternoons also, there are actually events that are inside because, that's a consideration. And the other thing that I consider a must-see is the cultural trade show, I guess we're going to call it, that's happening at the Mariner Center for 3 days. We have over 65 exhibitors and vendors, some of them coming from across the diaspora. So there are things there that people may not get a chance to see. Like, for example, the state of Louisiana has a pavilion. The government of Quebec has a pavilion. France will be there, as well as local vendors and products. So it's a mix, and we have a main stage where there's either presentations, musicians, or culinary sessions that are happening. So it's going to be, that again is inside. So if it's a rainy day, we expect that it's going to be quite busy in there on that day. But it'll give anybody who's interested at all in learning about French or Acadian culture can come in and, be welcomed and learn a bit more of when we talk about, la diaspora, or when we talk about the, Francophone communities, what does it mean, right?
So I was hoping to make the 2019 Congrès mondial, but I ended up knocking on doors my first election at that time. So I had to forfeit my tickets. But I'd say the way that it's organized here and using all of our smaller infrastructure, albeit we don't have all that, the big infrastructure that, Moncton may have, it's going to create a more intimate, probably, Congrès, where you can actually have closer connections and conversations. And you asked about how perhaps the Congrès has changed or evolved over time. You go back to 1994 for the first Congrès, and look at how technology has evolved now and how those connections weren't sort of one and done, and your pen pals or you're making long distance calls. Now those connections are being made, and you're adding people on social media, and you're staying in contact with them. And I've even experienced that, meeting people in my role as minister, whether it be traveling to Louisiana or France or otherwise, and you maintain those connections and continue to have those conversations. And even like this is different. We're expecting like 30,000 people over the 9 days, some before and after, and the economic impacts can be significant, upwards of $25 million. That's I think the numbers that were crunched a few years back. And folks are be staying in hotels and motels and Airbnbs and whatnot, but also the folks that have made connections in years past are going to be taking their travel camper and camping on somebody's yard in their backyard and continuing to grow their own family connections that way. So it's much different than, let's say, you were welcoming, hypothetically, the World Juniors to Yarmouth County and area. It's a cultural event that people that have taken part in previous ones may recognize what's coming, but I don't think there's probably a lot of people that aren't expecting or aren't necessarily aware of what's going to be taking place in less than 2 months in our area.
I don't know who wants to field this one, but what's your best advice for the locals as far as opening their arms and welcoming people into the area, French or otherwise?
I'd jump in just as local MLA. I don't think that's going to be a challenge. I think people in Argyle and in our surrounding region do that best. We have the best hospitality in the province, and Nova Scotia as a whole is very hospitable. So I think the visitors that are going to be coming here are going to have a very unique experience. and we're going to be able to showcase the best that we have to the world. And I know I'm very excited for that to happen.
Anything that showcases local music, food, and otherwise. I mean, music and food bring people together. We all know that. But to be able to showcase local music and local food is, to me, is a big draw. Are you anticipating repeat tourism out of this as well?
Honestly, I do, and I do for the reason because the way it's been marketed outside of region, and that's something I lived before. I'm originally from New Brunswick. I've been working with Le Congrès for the past 2 years and a little bit of change. We've been living out of McTagan, my whole family and I, for the past 3 months now. So really been living it, feeling it, and seeing it. But it's really, there's misconceptions out there on how it works, what the regions are, and really who's where geographically. So I think people that will be coming in pour le Congrès will have the opportunity to visit everything based on the programming. You really start from L'Anse de Béliveau all the way down to Pubnico. So you're able to really see it, live it, feel it, and then understand for a repeat visit, I haven't time to see Les Îles Tosquettes. I didn't have time to do this, didn't have time to do that. And then come back and do those things as a tourist in a year that doesn't have a Congrès. So I think that's an opportunity for sure. That's a bit how we've been also communicating with all these sites and operators, just to say, every piece of content we put out, tag yourselves and really try to piggyback on our traffic, because as much as we are an event, yes, we are also kind of the tourism bringing all these people here, but we don't have them 24 hours a day. So the times that they're not at a show, signing, a book launch, something in another stream, they need other activities. So try to fill it in with as much as possible within what's in the regions.
And it could be said that, Acadie has no boundaries, has no borders, right? But for Acadians around the world, there's a special significance to Nova Scotia, because Nova Scotia is the birthplace of Acadie in Port Royal. And those sites there, albeit they're not in the Congrès geographic immediate capture area, Grand Pré as well, a mecca for the Acadian population. Those are regions that visitors to our province are going to be taking. And then there's, of course, all the other Acadian regions, from Chéticamp to Torbay to Truro, everywhere, that they will be able to benefit as well and participate in this. And there's as we spoke about earlier, the imprint that the Congrès is going to leave on the Acadian culture and the Acadian population in Nova Scotia, and hopefully reincite some pride in the culture and in the language, but also what's that going to mean for generations, for the younger Acadian generation, Francophone generation in Nova Scotia, but also the people that are going to have the very unique experience as they travel home. What are they going to take from their experience for the Congrès in Nova Scotia? What are they going to take back from their home region? So this is although it's 9 days, it's going to have lasting impacts beyond the return on investment, beyond the concerts and the family reunions. It really has a lasting and true meaning to the Acadian community as a whole.
Well, just I can give you a story. Just for example, there was a lot of people that attended the '94 Congrès in northeastern New Brunswick, especially from Louisiana. And I've met over the years that people who went to New Brunswick, it was important for them to also come to Nova Scotia. So they planned their trip, and Grand Pré was one of them, and somehow they made themselves their way down to Clare. And I know of two couples for sure that ended up buying summer homes in Clare because they felt the connection. And
the weather's better. It's more moderate here.
Yes, in the summertime. They love the weather here in the summertime, right?
That too.
And one guy, his name is Ken Taggart, and he's from Church Point, Louisiana. So we would go look at the markets on a Saturday morning, and people would kind of look, it's like, who's this guy? And he'd say, yeah, I'm Ken Taggart. And they'd say, from where? And he'd say, Church Point, right? And then, but
they didn't ask what state or what country.
Exactly, right? And he fit right in. And then there's the Trahans who bought a place and come every summer because this is their home related to Como's. The lady's name is Brenda Como-Drahan. And they feel right at home. And I mean, you wouldn't know because they talk and they act just like us, right? So even though the Congrès was in New Brunswick, there was benefits here for Nova Scotia. And it's about, again, that attachment to the people, and I see it when you go to a Congrès. You if you watch the people, like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in 5 years. I was so glad that I got to see you again. Like they plan it. If they're people, other years they may be going, I don't know, to Greece or Italy, but a year of the Congrès, they're attending the Congrès. And those relationships continue, and sometimes they turn into business opportunities. Sometimes, we know people from Clare that have businesses doing business in Lafayette, Louisiana, for example. And that can happen with Quebec also. There'll be a lot of, organizations come from Quebec who there might be some partnerships, and also from the Atlantic provinces.
And that's one thing, Quinn, that we're as a government trying to, I guess, line up accordingly. So Congress from the 10th to the 18th. So every department, every ministry has different federal, provincial, territorial tables. So and some of these meetings typically happen before summertime because as elected officials, we like to spend time in our constituencies and have a little bit of downtime sometimes. Albeit it won't happen for me this year. But so the federal, provincial, territorial table for Francophonie is going to be in Halifax immediately before the Congrès. So we'll be welcoming ministers from across the country for those meetings. And then we'll be leading into an economic forum, Francophone economic forum, leading into the Congrès as well. And welcoming different folks and organizations to speak on how Francophonie has a key role in our nation's economy. And then, we've talked a lot about on the scheduling of the Congrès itself, but I mean, there's other summits. I mean, there's the Women's Summit, there's the Economic Forum taking place at the Digby Pines, there's the Youth Summit. So there's other important events to engage different key sectors of our community as well.
How do you keep it alive for the younger crowd? I mean, obviously, anybody that's a parent will know that their kids' attention span is generally 15 seconds. Most of it's online, et cetera. So, how do you engage a younger generation to want to preserve culture going forward?
It's not easy, but I think that the result of the Congrès is they become engaged. So in the planning of it, they may not have they haven't seen one before. So they kind of, it's like the Festival Acadien Claire. It's like, yeah, kind of, but over 10 days and in, 16 different communities at the same time kind of thing. And they can't imagine that there's all these number of people from away that are going to come. Now, I can talk a bit about our board of directors, the organizing committee, and we have 12 members. And when I came on, I asked them why they wanted to be involved in the Congrès. And mostly the answer was that when the Congrès was here in 2004, they were teenagers. And the Congrès had an impact on them, and they wanted to be part of the organization to be able to give that same experience to their children. So we see after a Congrès probably a higher number of people in the younger generation going, okay, that was cool. Like, I get it now, but it's hard for them to imagine it because they haven't lived it. Another thing that we've seen is young artists, and somebody like Lisa LeBlanc, who a lot of people recognize. She calls herself a Congrès baby because her also was young, maybe, 8, 10, 12 years old during the first Congrès. Joseph Egard, there's a certain number of them. And they'll actually go and say that they're Congrès babies because it's being part of the Congrès that impacted them and made them want to write French music and travel and listen. And actually, we have an example within our team, which is Trevor E. Murphy from Sluice. And he had the same experience attending other congrès and all of a sudden saying, wow, people actually do this for a living? And because having not traveled a whole lot out of the area, hadn't had a chance to experience that. And now, I mean, he's our media relations person, and he writes our news bulletin, and he has a group now that sings in French. And so that's part of the reason why we do these also.
And is that the real legacy that you want to see come from this?
Absolutely. That's the biggest legacy, is that renewal of pride within the communities. And let's face it, it's been tough over the last 5 years for everybody. COVID, but also other incidents that have happened in Nova Scotia. And planning at first was a bit of a challenge because we couldn't get out. I mean, everybody's done the virtual meetings and things like that. We weren't sure how people would participate in open events and, what the impact would be. Would COVID be over? Would we still have restrictions and things like this? And we've had to plan through all these restrictions. But yeah, that's one of the legacy pieces. And perhaps I'll send it over to Pier-Luc to talk about, how we went about promoting our businesses also.
Because one of my main goals was to say, what do we need, not just as products, but as experiences for people coming in? Because we talk about the festivals, the conferences, and all the other things, but it's also about what's specific to Southwest Nova Scotia, what's specific to this culture, what is brewed, created, crafted, baked here. One joke I always make, and these guys are pretty much tired of me saying it, is I'm not picking an official rapure. There's not an official Congrès mondial acadien rapure or rappy pie.
You're playing it safe.
Well, I told this in another meeting, like I can't pick Colton's because he won't have time to bake enough. But no, the goal was to do this. And how we've built it is that, yes, we have the traditional sponsorship packages. People know these. Businesses from around here are used to it, whereas there's so many events and opportunities that they understand it. But the way we needed to do it is because the amounts we were looking for, which were really well in line with an international event of our scope and nature, were also not accessible for most of the small businesses. That's something we knew from the get-go. So how to get around it is we created together, based with our strategic objectives, this plan to do co-brand deals. So in our co-brand deals, what we really did was go see the local cider producer, local craft beer makers, local brewers, etc., and say, here's an opportunity to either launch a new product, use your existing product. What we ask in return is we're going to create the label for it for the duration of our promotion and during Le Congrès, that you're able to either keep or change back to your original labeling afterwards. And for this, you're going to be part of Le Congrès Mondial. No money asked on your end, but you're also taking care of all the operational responsibilities. So what I didn't want to do was to create more pressure on small businesses, but give them the opportunity to be part of it. So that's how we got together with Boatskeg out of Pumlico. So those guys, actually, the product they're launching with us, it's something that will stay on their line now. So the new strawberry hard iced tea will stay a mainstay product of theirs. Same with Heritage, with the Lager de la Mer. That one's interesting because they never had a French name or label product. Not because of anything else. They never had a product or an occasion for it. So that when we came in with the concept, they said yes very, very quickly. And then we said, well, how about we do the whole thing in French? And then they printed it, launched it, and then let us know, so, oh yeah, it's out. So as much as we had a timing for this, they scooped us on our own scoop. So that was a real good one for us. You see, we've done the same with Ruthers, with their Blonde Rock. We're doing 2 wines with Maison Muse. We have a different deal that's with the Acadian Teas and La Brûlerie du Vieux Moulin for tea and coffee. We just signed up the La Chocolaterie by the Sea out in Yarmouth to do some stuff for our invited guests and also some stuff for us in the promotion ahead of time. And then we're also, the biggest story for me so far is the entire deal with Denise at Corbry Cider. So she's the prime example why this program exists. She told us point blank, with the production I have, I cannot be part of Le Congrès. Isn't able production-wise, isn't able cash-wise. It's a sideline for her. So when we came in with this plan, how we're going to do it, why we're doing it, she said yes. And she didn't just say yes. She's giving us 100% of her production for this year. So all of the core reciters that were done for Le Congrès will be co-branded. So we've got the 3 lines, etc. They're sold as a package deal. It's going to be beautiful. And those little stories, though, we've been telling them, explaining them, and really kind of showcasing it because we're talking legacy pieces in the community. That's also a legacy piece for the economic side because these products do endure post-Congrès. What we're hoping it's going to do, and what it's already doing, it's launching new lines and diversifying those businesses. So there's a few of these where they're running out of stock. They're brewing more, they're crafting more. Because they're understanding now a bit to Colton and Vaughn's, it's kind of, okay, as we said fresh, la parenté s'en vient, là. People will be here. They're excited for it. But now it's really, okay, let's get ready. Because once the concert sits, when everything else is going to be more and more and more and more.
Now, obviously, you can't run an event locally, and certainly not something of this size, without partners and without volunteers. So I want to give you a chance to shout out to your partners and
Well,
volunteers.
it would actually take probably the whole 45 minutes just to go through the lists that we're still compiling. And as I said earlier, a Congrès is built on its community. And a Congrès cannot exist without partners. And it's that community engagement also that makes it such a great event. We talked about, all the fire halls and the local clubs, fire halls that are hosting community lunches, or a lot of the community halls that are hosting the family reunions. And those are all run by volunteers, the Legions and, the Knights of Columbus halls, all run by volunteers. So every one of those, we couldn't have done it without them. Also, all of the organization with the family reunions, which we do support to a certain extent, but that's all volunteer work. All the organization of those family reunions are all volunteers. Also, of course, we have our sponsors, and we're promoting those, and that's part of the agenda, and I guess the organization of the Congrès. But also, we've just recently launched in the last 2 weeks our volunteer drive, I guess. So people can go to our website, and there's a button that says volunteer with Congrès, and they can fill out a form and apply to volunteer. And we've had a good response up to now of volunteers. So we know there are many, many dedicated people and people that want to help support us. And all along, there's been people coming to the office and saying, is there anything that I can do? How can I help? And we've taken a few of them on, and maybe a shout out to Andre Boudreau, who's doing our transportation, all our logistics about transportation. And he came in and he said, well, you guys are too late. I've got a trip. I can't do it. And then he came back and he says, well, maybe I can give you like a day a week. And then he comes back and he says, well, give me the file. I'll take it. It was stronger than him, right? He just, people have a calling and to get involved because they want to be a part of it. And they go down in history. I mean, we talk about, this is the 7th. We talk about New Brunswick. We talk about PEI. Oh, do you remember the one in Louisiana when we did this? And so it stays in history, like Congrès 2024, Southwest Nova Scotia.
Now, 5 years doesn't seem like a long time, but it is, from a technology point of view. So, people nowadays are expecting a certain degree of live streaming and the like. Has that been baked into your plan as well?
Lots of it has been baked in. A lot of it, too, is built in we're mostly going for experiences in the moment. So as much as we're, embracing technology and how we promote Le Congrès and how we are preparing the Congrès, it's really to be able to live it. And our slogan in French is really Venez vivre votre Acadie, in a way that it's not just the l'Acadie from here. It's also come live your own and bring your own with you. So the idea is how to create that experience live on site. There will be a live stream of different things. We're having this type of conversation and a few different things where we're able to create kind of the dailies program of what happened, what's happening, do interviews, use social media, of course, and do some of them, start bolstering up our YouTube presence. But the goal is really, we want people to live it here and live what's true to here. That's a bit the idea in every Congrès so far, even if the first ones didn't have as much technology as today. But it's the idea, okay, how can we supplement the experience with technology instead of just making it about technology?
And even with our social media, we've built a community. Because sometimes we don't even have to answer the questions because other people answer them.
Somebody else will chime in.
And we really have some top fans there also and people that are supporting us. And I think also because we're so present on those social media, there may be some people that can't attend. So they follow us through our newsletter and through our social media pages. So they live the experience in a different way from afar, but they're still living it. But then, of course, we also, part of the show on August 15th will actually be broadcast on television, Radio-Canada across the country. So there's some elements of streaming, but there's some elements of television also. So people that can't be with us can live moments, certain moments also.
And like I'd add is that people will be sharing probably in real time their own experiences, right? So they'll be posting on Instagram, Facebook, and on Twitter or X now of what's taking place in the moment and sharing their personal view of our region to folks in their network.
Now, Colton, obviously, I'm sure you'll be participating in the LeBlanc family reunion, but what does it mean for you? Are you a politician for that week, or are you a LeBlanc for that week?
I'm wearing many hats that week. I'm first and foremost a proud Acadian that week, and participating in all of the events that I can as an Acadian, but also as an MLA of the area and also as Minister of Acadian Affairs and Francophonie. I finally got to have a sneak peek to my schedule that my staff prepared, and looking, of course, at the flagship events, and those are the mandatory ones that I'm really looking forward to. But also looking at the different community breakfasts and lunches, and trying to get out and engage with visitors to our region. And as we noted earlier, there are going to be pop-up events. So it might be a restaurant or a brewery that's going to have, local music, and, you pop in, and that might be one of the highlights of the day, for sure. So
can we anticipate a Colton LeBlanc karaoke night somewhere?
I would gladly participate in any kind of jam that week. We'll limit it to that week only, publicly. But no, it means a lot to me personally as an Acadian, but as a local representative for our community and our region. But even as minister, it's particularly special to have that portfolio and have this type of event in your own backyard. And it's a little bit of a history repeating itself, because Chris D'Entremont back in 2004 was MLA for Argyle, and he was also Minister of Acadian Affairs. So I don't want to predict or even guess what the next 20 years is going to look like, but it's going to be a crazy time, and in a good way. But I encourage anybody that hasn't had a chance to look at the schedule to go on the Congrès website and have a sneak peek and start planning out their own week and picking and choosing what they want to see and what they want to do. Because this will be very exciting for our region and the entire Acadian community.
So, Vaughn, event's over, dust is settled, you get a little bit of sleep, maybe a tidy or two. How do you define success from CMA 2024? What's going to be your boxes to tick that you did a good job and things happened the way that you hoped it would?
Well, of course, there's the outward facing, the event itself, and making sure the event is safe. People, had a good time, and we'll see you again. So there's the participation at the events and the numbers and things like this. But the organizing committee at the beginning has given itself a number of objectives, strategic objectives. One being, promoting local businesses and promoting the area. One being, that renewing that pride, and the other one was about, community spaces and building, public spaces, and maybe we're not building infrastructure, but the fact that we're using all these community halls. So we've already, I look at these every now and then and go, okay, I'll be able, we'll be able to report on these. We're pretty sure, we've got success in that area, according to the objectives that the committee has given itself.
Pierre, final words?
It's going to be about seeing how the event lives on years after. Because right after, everybody's still excited. It's like you've been to it, now some concert, you're going to talk about it, and you still kind of live it for the following months. But as we've all said in different ways, that we've been to different Congrès that we talk about fondly of different things. So that's where I believe the part of the legacy will be is, okay, how are we going to be talked about in schools moving forward? How is it going to be part of the makeup of the region? What will be still, we're able to point to it. There's a few banner programs going up in the communities that are built to be longer lasting than this summer. So there are some kind of keepsakes like that I'm looking forward to see on subsequent visit what are going to be here. There's people, and I've learned there's stories from locals lately that painted their garage doors the Acadian flag 20 years ago. It really looks a little bit white now. They'd be due for a redo, but they've done it for Congrès in 2004. So I'm kind of curious, okay, is it going to be mostly Pride showcased that way? Will it be Pride showcased in different ways? We're going to see upticks in different things. But I'm sure there will be stuff that even us as planners and producers, we don't see yet. It's going to happen on the spot. It's going to happen afterwards, and we'll be as surprised and excited as everybody else because we're going to be able to say this happened because of it.
To that point, we look at 20 years after the last Congrès in Nova Scotia, and people are dusting off their Acadian family name lawn signs. The vertical red, white, and blue with the star at the top with the Congrès logo, and then LeBlanc or whatever family name going down vertically in the white. And it's nice to see actually some sign shops starting to produce some modernized ones. I have no doubt that the Congrès is going to be a success. I'm confident that we're going to see a strong participation and engagement from our local community. There's lots of talk internationally and across the country and for participation here. I think we can talk numbers. That'll be one element, but I think we're probably the team's on the right path there. Of course, we can't control weather, so we're fingers crossed for nice weather to that aspect. But it also, it's look at what's legacy. So the co-branding that Pier-Luc talked about, that I hope that these companies continue to showcase that on their products, because it's a reminder of the Congrès, but it's a reminder that we are an Acadian region in southwestern Nova Scotia, and perhaps they can build on that branding that's been developed. And then also look at the proclamation that Premier Houston made last year at the Acadian Village in West Pumlico, proclaiming that starting this August is going to be the first Acadian Heritage Month every year. So it's a very good alignment with the Congrès being hosted in Nova Scotia and in southwest Nova Scotia as well. And I think that will always be a reminder of the Congrès being here as well. So, and also, the revitalization of, and hopefully sparking new interests in our youth and in pride of their culture and their history and their language. But I'm confident it's going to come together, and we're going to be smiling ear to ear, for years to come.
MP for West Nova, the Honorable Chris D'Entremont, was not able to join us for the main recording, so we caught up with him in his office here in Yarmouth and asked him what he was hoping for to get out of this year's CMA festivities.
Well, ultimately, it's going to be great to see, a great tourism season, to see lots of people coming from, New Brunswick, other parts of the province, Louisiana, France. We know, so we have people coming from Quebec. So we've got a lot of people coming with some kind of Acadian connection, coming to participate in the events that are happening here. So it'll be great to see just the number of people that are going to participate. This is the first one we've had in 5 years. There's been a lot that's been going on in the last 5 years. So it's just going to be nice to get together, talk about our ancestry, but moreover, get to know each other once again, because a lot of times we don't see some of these people between the meetings. So it'll be great to see them and talk about, what's important for Acadians and how do we keep this culture alive.
Chris, what are you hoping that non-Acadians take away from CMA 2024?
I'll go back to 2004, and I had the opportunity to be the Minister of Acadian Affairs. So I was a young Colton LeBlanc at the time when this happened. We were able at the time to convince government to support this, number one. Nova Scotia is not necessarily known as a bilingual province, even though we have a large Acadian community. A number of communities across the province were not a bilingual province. So we were able to convince the other ministers and the government to invest in this, but not only to invest in this, but to call the 15th of August as it was Provincial Acadian Day, it became National Acadian Day. We were able to bring an act on Francophone services to the province. That was a long-term project that we were able to get started back in 2004, continues today. What happens right now within the CSAP, the added interest in making sure that we have kids that are bilingual as they come from these communities and then can participate in their culture and understand what their history is. I think there's some retombées from this that are extremely important, and having an event like this now, I think it just sort of provides a little more energy to some of these things that may have been forgotten.
For you personally, as a proud Acadian, what are some of the must-see moments from CMA?
Well, I mean, there's going to be a lot of different events, lots of breakfasts, lots of things that goes on with different families. But I think what I'm looking forward is the Tantamar. The Tantamar is always an event that, you make as much noise and you parade down a street and you remind the world that you're here by making as much possible noise as you can. That's going to be awesome. And seeing that move into the 15th of August show that's happening at the airport, I mean, I'm really, really looking forward to those things. And we're looking at a number of hopefully special guests that will come and do that with us. And I think the more people that are there, and then you don't have to just to be an Acadian. We'll baptize you an Acadian as much as you want to participate in any of these events during that week.
Kiss the Robbie Pie.
Eat the Roppy Pie, and there's different traditions, whether you're a New Brunswicker, whether you're a Nova Scotian, whether you're a Southwest, whether you're a Clare and Argyll, there's distincts amongst those groups, but I think we all know how to party and we all have a good time.
I'm Gary Nickerson.
And I'm Quinn Taggart.
And this has been Outside My Window.